Coming up on this episode, Kairat Almaty bring Champions League football to the Far East, a stadium announcer gets his marching orders in Craiova, and the OFC Professional League lineup is announced. Hello, and welcome to the Sweeper Podcast, the World Football Podcast made in association with FIFA Plus. I'm Lee Wingate.
And I'm Paul Watson.
And today we'll be taking you on another whistle-stop tour of the football world, from the Arctic Circle to the Pacific Ocean. On the agenda for part one of this episode are the three UEFA club competitions, and I think, Paul, there is only one place for us to start. It has to be Kairat Almaty, who have completed a remarkable journey from the first qualifying round to the league phase of the Champions League to make their debut in the competition.
Yeah, and we've been following this for some time, haven't we, Lee? Especially with our geographical nerdery. We've been looking forward to seeing if they can make it. But at each stage, it's not looked very likely. And that victory over Celtic on penalties, it could hardly have been more dramatic, could it really?
Yeah, it's quite impressive, though, isn't it, to get all the way from the first qualifying round to the league phase, all in one competition. Didn't lose a single tie, obviously. Geographically, as you mentioned there, they are the easternmost club to ever reach the group or league phase of the Champions League. It's close to the Chinese border, and the following cities are further west than Almaty: Omsk in Russia, Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, Tashkent in Uzbekistan, Kashgar in China, Islamabad in Pakistan, and Mumbai in India. It's so far away!
It's so far away. And I think you pulled out a stat for a tweet that I had to reread a couple of times just to get it in my head, that for all their away matches now at the group stage, they'll travel 44,000 kilometres, which you said equates to more than a full lap of the planet. What? Yeah. What a stat.
Yeah, because all of their away fixtures in the league phase, they've got Arsenal, Sporting, Copenhagen and Milan, and what that means is, that's two fixtures right over they're all in Western Europe, aren't they? But especially the Arsenal and Sporting games, they are long, and I think that the Kairat Almaty Sporting Champions League game is the biggest away day in the competition's history. At home, they've got Real Madrid, Olympiacos, Club Brugge, and Paphos. I think I'm really interested by the fact that Real Madrid, the competition's record winners, are going to be flying out to near the Chinese border. But also the Paphos game. This is two Champions League debutants playing each other, which you don't see very often.
No, you don't. No, as you say, the Real Madrid one is very evocative. The idea of Real Madrid going to this completely different footballing reality, this journey, actually reminds me of when Real Madrid played Sheriff Tiraspol. And did they not at one point lose to Sheriff Tiraspol from
at the Bernabeu? Yeah.
At the Bernabeu. Oh, they lost at home. Yeah, that's right. They lost at home, but they won away. But the idea of this team coming into just this totally different world from what they're used to. It's what has really cracked me up, Lee. And being the sweeper, we would obviously be on one side of this thing. But when, especially when Celtic were travelling to play against Kairat, there were a lot of quite indignant messages saying, "Why are this team even in UEFA competitions?" Suddenly, everyone was an expert saying, why is Kazakhstan even in UEFA? It's so far east. And that I found that really funny to see people finally discussing something we've discussed I don't know how many times on this pod.
Yeah, I mean, Kazakhstan, to recap for any new listeners, joined UEFA from AFC in 2002. There were several reasons, but I think the biggest one was the increased level of competition. And as officially a transcontinental country, they were allowed to do so. But obviously it is a bit of an outlier in UEFA, and especially with Russia suspended, it is by far the biggest or the furthest away country that any other European nation can travel to. I don't know if you saw the viral video of the wedding in Almaty where they paused their celebrations for the evening to watch the shootout against Celtic.
I did. And to be honest, I'd like to think that's what I would impose if I was getting married in England. I think all weddings should be paused when a minnow is about to do something amazing. We should normalise that, right?
I do remember sneaking into the back room at a wedding once to watch England 5, Germany 1. Because it was being shown on a small screen, but the bride wasn't too happy when she found out. We are going to find out a little bit more now about what it was like at the stadium, because we're going to bring in travel YouTuber John McAllister, who is in Kazakhstan right now. John, how are you doing? Welcome to the Sweeper.
Yeah, very good. It's pretty surreal being on. Long-time listener.
It's great to have you. Before we focus on your experiences at the Kairat Celtic game, perhaps you can introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them about the crazy challenge you are currently undertaking.
Yeah, no worries. So I thought that it would be a fun way to spend my summer to try and travel overland between Wales and Kazakhstan for our World Cup qualifying game this week.
And, I mean, how many countries have you been through on that journey?
I think it's 12.
12.
Yeah, 12 countries.
It's absolutely it's an astonishing thing to be doing. So when you saw this Celtic game come up, you obviously wouldn't have known about that. That wouldn't have been set when you were setting off. That game hadn't even, been drawn yet. They had other ties to play. So was this kind of quite a nice bonus for you that this happened to just fall on a plate for you to be present at this game?
Oh, it was a hell of a bonus. I had absolutely. I fluked it completely. Even down to getting a ticket for the match, it was a complete chance. But worked out brilliantly in the end for me. Apart from personal footballing opinions.
I saw that you were posting on Twitter, right, to look for a ticket. And how did you get hold of one?
Well, I'm a Celtic fan as well as a Barry Town fan. Got to plug them while we're on this pod. So I tried to buy a ticket through normal channels, but they're season ticket only. And luckily, I emailed the supporters liaison officer on the day of the game, and he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, we've had some no-shows. If you can turn up in the next hour, then you can have a ticket."
I bet most people don't have the ability to just turn up in Almaty in the next hour.
Yeah.
But so you were actually in with the Celtic fans then, because that was going to be one of my questions. Were you in with the Kairat fans and having to pretend this was like the best day of your life when actually you were gutted?
No, I was in the away end. Probably for the best, because home end tickets sold out in under an hour, and apparently they were going for like £100 plus on the black market.
Wow. I mean, that's big for Kazakhstan, isn't it? Because I saw you were at a Kazakh second division game and you paid about £1.35 to go to it.
Yeah.
So that's a heavily inflated price.
Yeah. I think it was a scalper's dream, that tie coming up. I can only imagine what Real Madrid is going to be like.
Yeah. God, yeah, you can imagine. What was it like in the stadium then? What was it like on the pitch? Because we don't really know much about Kairat Almaty's style of play, what they're like to watch. Have they got any standout players? Is there sort of anything you're able to glean from that game about what we can expect from them in the Champions League?
I think it's fair to say that they're going to be outsiders in probably every match that they're going to play. The only exception might be when they're playing Paphos. But again, Paphos have quite a good squad. So they set up quite defensively. I mean, they were holding the ball in the corner flag with a minute left of regular time. They were more than happy to take this game to extra time and penalties. Their standout player is set to sign for Chelsea in, I think, the January transfer window. Satpayev, the young striker. I mean, he's as close to a prodigal talent as Kazakhstan's probably ever had. Other than that, there weren't really any standout performances. I don't know whether you guys watched the game, but it wasn't high in quality. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it felt quite attritional at points, didn't it? And it felt, as you say, it felt like from the minute that second leg kicked off, they were very happy for that to go to a penalty shootout. To the point where if they'd lost the penalty shootout, I almost didn't cross my mind they could. It felt like that was exactly what they wanted to do, and that the world wanted them to go through on penalties in that match. It just seemed like there was no doubt from the off. But we also, I was really fascinated to see that you went to a Kazakh second-tier game. Now, that is something not many people in the world outside of Kazakhstan can say they've done. What did people think about you being there? I mean, that must have raised some eyebrows, right?
They were very, very confused at a foreigner trying to go and watch the game. Yeah. I mean, again, that was a fluke. I happened to load up Footballogy while I was getting off a tram and found a game that wasn't on there yesterday. And yeah, even that was a crazy fixture though, because it was a small side from Almaty playing against the team from Aktau, with the away team, who'd been relegated from the top division. I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before. But if you were to drive that as an away game, it's 64 hours each way.
Wow.
Probably easier for you to get there then, was it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I remember seeing Caspian Aktau on a map. That's on the borders of the Caspian Sea, I think. That's right over the west of Kazakhstan.
Yeah, right far over in the west.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, big away support for that one?
Surprisingly, more away fans than home fans.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
There were 25 or 30 quite vocal Aktau fans, unsure as to whether they just live in Almaty. But, I mean, hell of an away support if they travelled.
What's the sort of match day experience like in Kazakhstan? I mean, I know you paid almost nothing to get in, so that's already piqued my curiosity, because that seems remarkably cheap to see a game of any kind. But what's the food like? What's the mood like? What can you tell us about that Kazakh game?
For the Kazakh second tier game, they were very, very surprised that I even wanted to come in. So there's that for starters. I think they probably charge the fee that they do just as a nominal. You've got to pay something to come in. I mean, concessions weren't great. There was a sort of trestle table set up with some crisps on and cans of pop. That's about it in terms of sort of match day experience. If there hadn't have been 25 or 30 away fans with a drum, then it probably would have been a little bit more tame than it was.
Oh, so you didn't get your plate of horse four ways then?
Saw that sadly.
On Twitter. That's a Kazakh delicacy.
Sadly, that was elsewhere.
Ah, right.
You won't want to miss it, but also you might not want to have it.
What was it, John?
It was, what's the name of it? Beshmarbak, something like that. It's basically the Kazakh national dish, and it's lots of horse with some onions and some like pasta.
Oof.
Yeah. You're not selling it.
It's not one for the footy scran account, put it that way.
I think there'll be a lot of naysayers out there when they hear that.
Oh, Lee.
What about some of your other experiences on your trip then? Because I've been following pretty closely on X, Twitter, whatever we call it these days. You've been to something like 20 games. Perhaps you can pick out some of the standouts for us that you've seen along the way.
I've managed to fluke it brilliantly this entire trip. So I managed to get 3 games in Belgrade. So Partizan, not 3 games in Belgrade, 3 games in Serbia. Partizan against Hibs in the Conference League. That was good. But Partizan fans were not happy that they lost. And then I went to Red Star in a league game as well. That was pretty cool. Not often in a season you can manage to go to both in like a 3-day period. So that worked out well. Managed to get in 3 games in Istanbul as well through a European midweek. So I had to use a fixer to get a ticket for Fenerbahce against Feyenoord in the Champions League. But that was probably top 3 football experiences of all time.
Wow, great.
It was absolutely incredible. You can do pyro in the park before the game for 50p. Like it's that sort of level. It's incomparable with anything that you'd get in Western Europe at all.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, I saw that you've been going to games right across the journey, and yeah, it just looks like a dream trip.
Yeah, like I said, it's worked out perfectly. Even going to a game in Georgia on the one day that I could go to a match.
So the Wales game now, the Wales-Kazakhstan game, is it going to take on less of a significance now because you've had all these experiences, or are you still equally nervous and excited for that game as you were when you set off? Oh,
absolutely. It's a big game. I mean, if Wales want to qualify for this World Cup, which we do, then we can't really drop any more points. Not if we want to go toe-to-toe with Belgium. So, I mean, winning out here, it's not easy to do. Every team Kairat has played against has come up against that, but we're going to have to try and find a way.
I take it you're flying back, John.
Yeah. No question.
Honest, they should fly you back with the team after this. It's been a heroic effort. And I did hear that, is it right to say that Craig Bellamy mentioned you in an interview that he was doing?
Yeah, in a pre-game interview, he was talking about the incredible support that we're bringing, sort of 1,100 fans out here to Kazakhstan, and off the cuff said, "Oh yeah, I heard this one lad left a month ago. We're going to have to get him in to meet everyone."
Amazing. Amazing.
God, I hope that happens. We've got to make sure that happens. I mean,
quite surreal.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I presume you will also be vlogging about that game as well. Where can our listeners find you if they want to see some of your content from your entire trip and from this Wales-Kazakhstan game?
Either on X or Instagram is probably easiest. My handles are the same on both. It's John McAll. And then from there, if you want to check out the YouTube stuff, then I've got links on there for all platforms pretty much.
Well, we will certainly put all of those links in the episode description, listeners, so you can find all of that stuff just by clicking the description. But John, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for joining us from Kazakhstan.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
We wish you good luck for the Wales game.
Cheers, lads. Thanks a lot. Good to have me on.
Absolutely fascinating conversation, that, especially because we've been looking to talk to someone who's been to Kazakhstan to watch football for ages and we've never found anyone. So amazing that we could have John join us on the show. While Kairat became the easternmost club to ever reach the Champions League, we also had another geographical record, didn't we, Paul? Bodø Glimt of Norway became the northernmost team, the first ever club from the Arctic Circle to reach the Champions League. Bodø Glimt have had such a presence in Europe over the past years that it actually surprised me that they'd not been in it before.
Yeah, I know. And it's been a funny one, hasn't it? Because it felt like this ever so slightly crept up on us. And I think it's because we've got so used to Bodø Glimt doing impressive things in Europe that I almost assumed they'd been in the Champions League in the past. But no, and it set up the draw has set up some fantastic games for them. They got Man City, Juventus, Monaco, and then they get their chance to try and get revenge on Spurs, who obviously beat them in the Europa League. So yeah, really exciting times for Bodø Glimt.
Yeah, so that's 2 Spurs trips up to the Arctic Circle in the space of like 4 or 5 months, probably. I don't know exactly when that match is taking place. I would really find it very funny if that game took place on the final match day, which, as we know, is in January. I think that would really, Bodø Glimt would get the most out of their home advantage there on the artificial turf, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think some of these clubs are going to find it difficult because I think we spoke about how in the Europa League semi-final, by the time Tottenham got there, the weather had actually thawed a lot, and it did seem to make a difference that, suddenly we're used to talking about these Arctic conditions and teams, can they survive? And the temperature was kind of like a fairly mediocre English day by that point. So I don't think Spurs found it particularly intimidating, but some of these clubs are going to be going there at a very tough time of year and playing on that artificial pitch in freezing cold conditions. You do just wonder if they could spring a few surprises.
There is quite a significant contrast between their home and away form, and they do have to go to some of the most atmospheric stadiums in Europe in the league phase, namely Borussia Dortmund and Galatasaray. But Slavia Prague, as we know, also has a fantastic atmosphere, as do Atletico Madrid. What do you think of their chances?
I think it's going to really test them. It's a very hard draw, but I guess that's what happens when you get into the Champions League, right? This is the level of club they're going to be playing against now. I think they'll see Slavia Prague as a potential result for them, and Galatasaray. Atletico Madrid away, Borussia Dortmund away. These are really, really tough ties, but we'll definitely be keeping a good eye on Bodø Glimt.
Have you seen that they've released a new third shirt inspired by melting ice in the Arctic Circle, by the way?
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? It's beautiful. Yeah. I feel like there's a whole host of ice-inspired shirts. Greenland's away kit. This isn't the first one recently that we've seen. It's a lovely shirt, and again, raising awareness to something really important, something about the geography changing in their part of the world. So yeah, no, it's a lovely shirt. That I hope they'll be wearing that in the tournament at some point.
If you are watching the video version of this podcast, we do throw pictures like that up during the show, so you will be able to see that beautiful Arctic Circle themed football shirt. But let's move on to our next highlight of the European qualifying campaign, because Malta, tiny Malta, have their first ever club in the group or league phase of a UEFA competition. It is, of course, Ḥamrun Spartans. They've reached the UEFA Conference League. Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I think we spoke about them before and whether they would be able to get past RFS of Latvia. And it was a very, very edge of the seat moment because they seemed to have it in the bag. And then RFS came back and were one goal away from taking it to extra time. And the ball was bobbling around Ḥamrun Spartans' box. And I could barely bear to watch myself. I can only imagine how nervous Ḥamrun Spartans fans must have been during that moment.
Yeah, they are now the 12th country, Malta, to have a first representative in a group or league phase since the introduction of the UEFA Conference League in 2021 to 22. It is just UEFA's best invention. I know we have this same chat every 3 or 4 months, but I just love the impact it has had for smaller nations. You now only have Andorra, Montenegro, and San Marino as the only 3 nations who have yet to achieve that. So it has been so good for the, inverted commas, minnows of European football.
Yeah, it's done for club football what the Nations League has done for international football. And that difference that it creates, these opportunities for teams to compete on an equal footing at this level, it's just fantastic, I've got to say.
I think we do have to focus on some of our disappointments also, because San Marino came really close to crossing their name off that list as well. Virtus were playing against Breidablik. I say really close. It was a remarkable achievement for them to get to the playoff round. And there were points during that tie where it was close, but they ultimately lost 5-2 on aggregate. Paul, I must admit, I never thought there'd be an instance where we'd be cheering against an Icelandic club in a European competition, but I certainly was on the night.
I was. I didn't really think they had a huge chance in that one. As you say, also we're big fans of the Icelandic clubs. We've had lovely times cheering on Breidablik, so it did feel slightly odd. But again, there are just signs that these so-called lesser nations, these minnow nations, are catching up a little bit. And Virtus's campaign, they'll take away an awful lot of credit, and hopefully that can just carry on building.
A couple of other disappointments from our own perspective that we want to share. Santa Clara did not become the westernmost club to ever get to a group or league phase, famously from the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Sadly, they fell to Shamrock Rovers, and I think this is an opportune moment to give a shout out to the League of Ireland, which has got 2 clubs in the league phase of the European competitions for the first time ever, Shamrock Rovers and Shelbourne. Great achievement for Ireland.
Yeah, great achievement. And Shelbourne with this funny route where they beat Linfield of Northern Ireland twice in there. There were a few of these in qualification, weren't there, where teams met twice. I think it happened at least one other occasion. But one quite emphatically Shelbourne both times. But yeah, it's good news for the League of Ireland. It's clearly a positive thing for the country, yeah.
Right, we've got 2 more stories from European qualification that we want to share. The first one, listener Connor Parry got in touch to say that the Freiburg-Basel tie in the Europa League could be the first ever European tie between 2 teams from different countries who share a local airport. This is brilliant sweeper trivia. Euro Airport Basel-Mulhouse Freiburg serves the tri-border region of Switzerland, France and Germany, and is 6 and 46 kilometres from Basel and Freiburg respectively. I am sure there are no other examples of that. There can't be.
There can't be. It's so specific, but what an amazing bit of trivia.
Yeah.
I've got to say, we do have the best listeners for these kind of questions. There can't be another one. What an amazing stat.
Another listener, Charlie Craven, got in touch to say that in the Conference League playoff tie between Universitatea Craiova and Istanbul Başakşehir, a virtually unheard of event happened. The stadium announcer was sent off. Did you see this?
No. Was sent off by the referee?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so after Steven Nsimba scored to make it 3-1 to the Romanians, there was chaos, there was a touchline scuffle involving players and staff, resulting in multiple red cards being issued by the referee. And amid this commotion, the stadium announcer was vocally celebrating the goal, shouting into the microphone, and he was shown a red card. Now, the journalist, Filip Czerlinski, suggested that the announcer had been walking around with a microphone and shouting in the faces of opponents and the referee, which is just a remarkable level of shithousery, isn't it?
It is, but that's outside the referee's jurisdiction. I don't think you can send off a member of the sort of wider stadium staff, can you?
I mean, he got sent off. You know what was quite funny as well? He just turned around, didn't say a word, turned around, walked off into the stands, holding his mic and continuing to shout into it. So he just didn't stop at all, just went straight into the crowd. But I suppose, Paul, there's no need to cry over spilt milk.
I knew you'd do it. As soon as I saw Craiova mentioned, I was like, "What is he going to do it somewhere?"
Had to work that one in, didn't I?
I think you should be sent off by the referee for that.
Well, I think that does bring our Euro roundup to an end. Congrats to Kairat Almaty, Bodø Glimt, Ħamrun Spartans, and everyone else that has sweeper support that's managed to get into the league stages of the 3 European competitions. We will, of course, be returning to talk about their adventures over the coming months. But for now, it's time for us to take a quick break. And when we come back after the music, we'll be bidding farewell to Europe and taking you through the newly announced 8-team lineup for the OFC Professional League and all the major talking points surrounding Oceania's first ever professional competition. Welcome back to part 2 of The Sweeper for a deep dive into the OFC Professional League, Oceania's first professional competition set for launch in 2026. And we're going to talk about it today, Paul, because the 8-club lineup has now been announced. Now, it is important to mention that they are preferred clubs at this stage because the announcement is still subject to the final stages of a licensing and compliance process. But let's look at those 8 clubs today. Who have we got in the inaugural lineup?
So, from New Zealand, we have Auckland FC and Christchurch United. From Australia, it's South Melbourne. Papua New Guinea, Hekari United. Fiji have the brilliantly named Bula Boys. Solomon Islands have the Solomon Kings. Tahiti have Tahiti United. And Vanuatu have Vanuatu FC. So far, I think they may be named something else when they actually launch.
I think it's interesting because I see 2 distinct groups of clubs here. You've got the 4 clubs that already exist and have been playing in other leagues and competitions. And then you've got the 4 franchises that have essentially been founded just for the purpose of taking part in this new tournament. So let's talk about the previously existing clubs so far. That's Auckland FC and Christchurch United, South Melbourne and Hekari United. I think it's quite interesting to see 2 New Zealand clubs that play in different countries. You've got Christchurch United, who play in the Southern League of New Zealand's football system, and then you've got Auckland FC, who play in Australia's A-League. And because they are already a pro team, and because the OFC don't want to create an imbalance at the outset, they will be sending an age-restricted squad to this tournament, which means essentially a founding member of the OFC Professional League will have a B team. That doesn't fill me with that much excitement.
No, it's a slightly weird situation, isn't it? They're saying, here's a brand new professional league, it's a new era, and here's a B team in it. And yeah, it sends slightly mixed messages, doesn't it?
Yeah, and what about the choice of Christchurch United over Wellington Phoenix, which seems to have generated quite a lot of controversy?
Yeah, Wellington Phoenix put out a statement pretty much immediately saying they were very disappointed by the decision, and you can sort of see why, really, can't you? Wellington Phoenix would be a pretty obvious choice, and for a team that are clearly a lower ranked team than them to take place in what is a professional flagship tournament, it feels like a bit of a poke in the eye for them, doesn't it?
Yeah, they did meet the minimum licensing requirements, but they scored lower than Auckland and Christchurch. Interestingly, they are considering a judicial challenge, and they want to find out more information about the scoring process. So that's going to be really interesting to see if this decision is contested. They've laid out multiple reasons why they think they should have been included in the original 8-club lineup. They say they are the oldest and largest professional football club in Oceania, the only club in the region with a fully staffed 8-team professional academy, the only club in Oceania providing a professional pathway for women's footballers, and they have invested more money into football in the region than any other private organisation. And when you look at all of that, Paul, it seems like quite a strong case, doesn't it?
It's a really strong case. And I think what it flags up is that when they were choosing these teams, the process is slightly unclear, because they haven't just simply said, who are the strongest, biggest clubs here? There's another dynamic at work, isn't there? And it's slightly intangible. And I don't know that they can challenge that decision successfully in that way, because it's not just pick us the biggest clubs that applied. There is something else going on. And I really feel for Wellington Phoenix, but I also don't think that's quite the thing here. It's not like, let's just pick our biggest sides. It's let's pick teams that will fit with this competition specifically, I think.
And I think there might be plans to expand the competition at a later date, and you'd have to imagine that at that point, Wellington Phoenix would be a shoo-in. But at the moment, they're not there. Let's move on then to South Melbourne. This is the only non-OFC nation club. They play state-level football in Victoria, and they are among the entrants for the new Australian Championship, which we talked about on a recent bonus pod. Now, I think for me, the interesting part about the choice of South Melbourne and an Australian club is who gets the Club World Cup spot, because part of this new competition is that the Professional League is going to serve as Oceania's pathway to qualification for the FIFA Club World Cup that takes place every 4 years. It's previously been the OFC Champions League. Now it's going to be the OFC Pro League. And what that really should mean under FIFA's statutes is that they shouldn't be able to take part, right? Because the statutes say clubs must represent the confederation their national association belongs to. And obviously, South Melbourne belongs to AFC.
Yeah, and they definitely shouldn't be able to take that OFC spot, right? Because they are simply not a member of OFC. And if they do, we can only assume again that would come with a lot of recrimination. That spot has effectively become a ticket for a New Zealand club, right? That's what that spot functions as. The dominance of OFC is in the hands of New Zealand. So if an Australian side were to take it, I think that would cause consternation. And I wonder if part of the equation here is they're thinking South Melbourne maybe won't, because, as you say, they're a second-tier club. So possibly the hope, the silent hope, is that they won't go and win this competition, because it would cause them any number of headaches, surely, if they propose to take that Club World Cup spot, which, as we've discussed, is really valuable. When you go outside of Europe, I mean, it's valuable to everyone, but when you go outside of Europe, those sums of money are transformational sums of money. And to just take that away from OFC feels like it's doing the exact opposite from what this tournament set out to do.
It is important to specify that, of course, you will have 4 winners of the OFC Professional League to take into consideration for the Club World Cup spot, because this is going to be an annual competition. And so what that essentially means is the best performing club over the 4-year cycle will get that spot. And I guess what would happen if South Melbourne were to be that best performing club over the 4-year cycle, it would then go to the second place team in that ranking. We can only assume, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption for what would happen, which I don't think South Melbourne would have any problem with either. I imagine they know what they're getting into. It's kind of a prestigious thing for them to get this spot, right? As a second-tier Australian side, they're suddenly competing in this big flagship competition. It's an exciting thing for them. Yeah, I'd assume that's what's going to happen if that is how it goes. I wondered, Lee, does that mean no teams are going to join within 4 years? Because if a new team comes in, aren't they therefore at a disadvantage that they haven't had as many years to rack up points towards this OFC qualification spot for the Club World Cup?
I mean, it's a great question. I think the honest answer has to be there's not that much information out there about this tournament yet. And even now we are kind of just going by the current FIFA statutes. It's not like a statement has already been put out to clarify this situation. So I think a lot of this tournament is going to be finding out as we go along, right? And just seeing what happens. The final club of the already existing clubs pool, Hekari United, what is their sort of claim to fame in Oceanian football?
Well, they are very much the dominant force in Papua New Guinea, right? They are the big cheese in Papua New Guinea. So this decision won't have been hard for them to make, I'd assume. They're also the only side in PNG who have made significant progress in OFC tournaments, right? So they are, I think, one of only 2 clubs from outside Australia and New Zealand to have actually won the OFC Champions League, which was an incredible achievement. The only thing with their selection is it plays into this dynamic we've spoken about, where will this just further strengthen a side that are already very much the big boys in Papua New Guinea, whereas these other clubs in Papua New Guinea aren't taking part in this competition. It's going to be very hard for them to compete, right?
I mean, you mentioned that before with the sums of money for the Club World Cup, and I presume that just participating in this competition is going to generate significantly larger sums of money for all of the clubs involved. And yeah, that's going to mean that the national competitions they're still participating in will surely have the competition distorted quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think that feeds into what we're going to talk about with the new clubs. These new clubs, I guess, were formed specifically for that reason, right? Because I think when we spoke about, for example, Tahiti, there was this worry that they were having AS Venus applied, and they were already one of the bigger clubs there. There was this worry that will they just become all dominant, and the same in Fiji and Solomon's, Vanuatu. So I guess they've got a solution, these 4 nations, that has allowed this to hopefully benefit the wider community. And they've gone sort of into a different model and set up franchises. That seems really sensible, but it's interesting that Papua New Guinea hasn't done that.
Yeah, it seems like the 4 franchises have all taken slightly different approaches as well. So the Bula Boys, which, as you said, is a fantastic name, they are majority owned by Fiji's Football Association, but they have been set up to operate independently. So that's one way of doing it. Then you've got the Solomon Islands. So the Solomon Kings is a new club that has been founded basically in a partnership between the Solomon Islands FA and an Australian club, Wynnum Wolves. And so the model is basically going to see the club with 2 bases in Honiara in the Solomon Islands and in Brisbane in Australia. That's already very interesting. It doesn't feel like a uniquely Solomon Islands club.
No, but it could be quite a pioneering model, I think. If it opens up opportunities for Solomon Islands football players to kind of get more help and get more support and get opportunities in Australia, I think it's quite a clever model, to be totally honest.
I think they've already laid out guidelines for how many local players and how many overseas players they can have in their squad as well. So I think what they're trying to do there is saying, yeah, we want to benefit from this partnership with Wynnum Wolves, but we don't want that to be to the detriment of local Solomon Island football players. So fair enough. The Tahiti United one you mentioned before, the club is Tahiti United, very imaginatively named, founded, as you said, by AS Venus. And my first thought here was, well, why, if they are... This is before I thought about what you said earlier. Why, if they are founding the club themselves, why are they not just participating? Why are AS Venus not just sending a team? But I think they have quite a strong local support base in Tahiti. And I think that they don't want a club to be affiliated with like one town or city. They want a nationally representative body. And so, fair enough, that's the approach they've gone for. Vanuatu FC, this is also, like Fiji, founded by the country's football association. And we joked about the name. They actually engaged the public in the naming of this club. They gave them options like Vanuatu FC, Vanuatu United FC, and Vanuatu Hawks, which is definitely the best name of the 3.
Yeah,
but they've gone for Vanuatu FC.
Come on, people. I mean, One thing, they did give them a carefully controlled set of options, right? Which I think we've all learned over the years. If you're going to let the public name something, give them very set options. Don't just make it an open vote.
Are you referring to that ship in the UK? Was it Boat Team at Boatface?
Boat Team at Boatface, which was, I think they were naming a Arctic submarine or something, and they opened it out to the public in this really idealistic way, thinking the public will come up with a great name. And yeah, Boat Team at Boatface won by a landslide. I think what happened in the end is they didn't call it that officially. They called it the HMS David Attenborough, after Sir David Attenborough, the famous sort of TV documentarian of nature. But on the side, it does say Boat Team at Boatface on the other side in sort of inverted commas, I think, because they just couldn't bring themselves to do it. But yeah, I would have gone with Vanuatu Hawks. That's a very cool name. Yeah, I'll be really fascinated to see how this all works for all of these new franchises. I mean, as you know, the kind of pod we are going to have a very soft spot for Tahiti United and Vanuatu FC and the Bula Boys and Solomon Kings, of course.
Should we talk a little bit about the format of this competition then? Because the first edition of the OFC Professional League will run from January to May 2026. Each club will play a minimum of 17 matches, and it says the competition will feature 5 circuit series rounds hosted across the Pacific, which I think is interesting because we've talked about the challenges that Oceanian football faces, and one of them is travel being very difficult and very expensive to get between these islands. Obviously, the Pro League is going to have more money, but they've tried to make it circuit series. What I presume that is mini tournaments. So 5 mini tournaments staged in various host countries.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, as you say. Often OFC qualification, especially in the early phases for continental competitions, for international competitions, they do exactly that. They get everyone to one location. They play a series of games in quite a short succession, and then they all go home. So that does make a lot of sense, I think.
It's going to be broken down into 2 groups. There'll be the leaders and the challengers. So 2 groups of 4 at the end of the circuit series. And what will then happen is that the top 4 teams will battle for 3 of the 4 semi-final spots, whilst the challengers playoff group will involve the bottom 4 teams, and the top side in that bottom 4 will earn a playoff match against the 4th place team from the leaders group to determine the remaining semi-final berth. Now, that is quite convoluted, but I also think it's quite clever, because otherwise they've just got nothing to play for, and obviously the top 4 don't have anything to play for. So I think that's actually weighted pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I had that thing, like when someone explains a board game to you, your brain just freezes and you think, what? But actually, when you unpick it, it is a very sensible solution, as you say, because otherwise you make someone's, half the team's season becomes meaningless very quickly. So I quite like it as a format. I think it's not bad at all. Interesting that semis and the final are single leg games. That's quite rare in continental competition, right? But adds some drama. I do love a single leg match for just the sheer sort of one-off drama of it. So I like the format. I think it's actually quite well thought through. It's interesting to me it starts as soon as January. I mean, we knew it would, but it's funny now that you look at the calendar and it's September. It's a short spell for these clubs, especially these new clubs, to form, to get a football club ready to play that soon.
Yeah, and also just in terms of balance, if you look at South Melbourne and Christchurch United, I don't exactly know when their respective seasons run, but I presume the the Victoria State League that South Melbourne play in is in line with the top league, right? So it would then be autumn to spring. I wonder how that works for them. What team do they field in the league? It's going to be super interesting to see it all unfold. We don't have all of the information yet. But who are you tipping to be the first? I mean, we've got nothing to go on here, but who are you tipping to be the winner of the first OFC Professional League, Paul?
It's a really good question, and I suppose this is what they have done very well. I would say Auckland FC, even bearing in mind that they might send a weaker side, I would say they're probably the favourites for this competition. But we just know so little about what these new teams are going to look like. Maybe South Melbourne they are obviously at a very good level. It's hard to know how that compares. But what I do know is, as I say, in OFC Champions League competition, generally New Zealand is all powerful and way stronger. It's got to the point where it has got quite uncompetitive. So the teams that are competing there are, the Solomon Islands teams, the Fijian teams. They're not getting anywhere near. It would be a surprise if one of the newly formed teams could pull this off. I think it's fair to say.
I agree. We've talked about pro clubs from Wellington and Auckland, but both cities are home to semi-pro clubs we've not yet mentioned. They are Wellington Olympic and Auckland United. And which game are the two of them going to be playing in, Paul, on Sunday, the 7th of September?
Well, it's the Chatham Cup final, Lee. And I must admit, I knew almost nothing about the Chatham Cup. I know of the Chatham Islands, which are not related to this, which are just off New Zealand, some of the most remote in the world. If you're in England, it's one of the furthest places in the world to get to. But yeah, I didn't actually realise that this tournament was taking place, which I'm a bit embarrassed about, and also that it's reached this phase.
Yeah, it's also the final of the women's version of this tournament, but it's called something different. That's the Kate Shepherd Cup, and that involves also Auckland United and the Wellington Phoenix Reserves, which is, again, a very interesting crossover. This is the senior men's team that play in AFC, and their reserves, the women's reserves play in New Zealand's Cup.
Yeah, I think so,
yeah. But yeah, those finals are both taking place on Sunday, the 7th of September. And we're telling you about them because they are available to watch top quality, live, free of charge on FIFA Plus. Now, the viewing times are a little bit antisocial for our European viewers. They are 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. UK time, respectively. But if you're based in the States or in Asia, then this is perfect for either late night Saturday viewing or Sunday morning, isn't it? So
yeah, for sure. And actually, when we were giving out that initiative where we gave out FIFA Plus clubs, so we would give you a club around the world, quite a lot of people from the UK and Europe would come to me and say, actually, I need a team that play at what are seen as antisocial hours because I'm a shift worker or, whatever else. My lifestyle means I actually end up with a lot of hours. If you've got a young baby, you often end up at 3 a.m. with a little asleep infant in your arms and you can't nod off. So you never know. These games might be just what you need for certain situations.
If you are getting up a little bit later in Europe, then there is a friendly between Australia and New Zealand in the morning of Tuesday, the 9th of September. That's at 8 a.m. UK time. And there are also a ton of African World Cup qualifiers on FIFA Plus over the international break, all free. You can watch, for example, the biggest possible away day in African football, Cape Verde against Mauritius. Now, that game is 10,000 kilometres between the two countries. I don't know if you remember what happened, Paul, the last time they played in March this year.
Oh, was this when Mauritius travelled to Cape Verde? I think, did they let in a very late goal and lose 1-0? Something like that?
Exactly
was it even
that,
goal?
Paul. Exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Cape Verde also have Cameroon. So the Mauritius match is on Thursday, the 4th of September at 5 UK time. And then the Cameroon match, that's a top of the table clash in their World Cup qualifying group, is the same time, so 5 p.m. UK time on Tuesday, the 9th of September. Cape Verde bidding to become the smallest African country by population to ever make the World Cup. And I think that will appeal to lots of our listeners. So you can watch those games on FIFA Plus using a mobile device, a tablet, a laptop, a smart TV, any electronic, basically anything you can watch it on.
Watch it on anything electronic.
Yeah, anything. Check out the link in the episode description that we'll include to sign up to FIFA Plus for free. All right, we wanted to continue the OFC theme in this segment by talking next about Tuvalu and their upcoming return to OFC competition. Now, Paul, I know pretty much nothing about what we're about to talk about, so I'm going to hand this completely over to you.
Well, Tuvalu are a really interesting case. They're one of only 2 associate members in the Oceania Football Confederation, them and Kiribati. So people might wonder, what does that mean? Well, associate members, I guess as it sounds, are members with less of the privileges of membership than the others. The expectation is they have to sort of prove themselves developmentally to get to a next tier. What it actually means is they get very little funding, and that these very small nations, which don't have a huge amount of resources, have to do all this stuff by themselves mostly, And Tuvalu are doing an amazing job of it. They're entering the OFC Men's Futsal Cup, which is in Fiji. That's September 20 to 24. And they'll be playing against Fiji, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, and New Zealand. And when you think about the resources those nations have, and then you think about Tuvalu, which receives, I think, about 30,000 New Zealand dollars per year. I think it's around that from OFC. You could barely have more of an underdog story than this tiny little place, Tuvalu, competing on that level.
Surely that money would barely cover their travel expenses for this tournament alone, right?
Yeah, those are paid for. So that doesn't include tournament travel. Yeah, but it does. What it doesn't do is allow them to pay people, to work full time. So at the moment, what they've got is a Dutch coach who's come over voluntarily, called Mikkel van der Werf, who has gone to Tuvalu to help them prepare for this tournament. And I believe he's a volunteer. He's really passionate about what he does. There's also a little group of Dutch people who have set up a sort of association that supports Tuvalu, and in the past even employed like a professional Dutch manager, Fopper de Haan, to come and coach Tuvalu for a tour of the Netherlands. This took place like some years ago. So all their help is effectively just coming from well-minded volunteers. And one of the fascinating things about Tuvalu, I think, is it's really evocative if you see it. It's obviously right on the sort of front line of climate change. It's a small island where the waves are lapping at it. It has almost no space, so the main football pitch floods absolutely and regularly. But one of the other places that kids just play sport recreationally is the airport runway. And so most of the sport on the island is just people booting a ball around on an airport runway. And it's amazing that from this background, they've got a team that is not only competing, but actually when they entered the 2023 Pacific Games, they beat Tonga, they beat the Northern Mariana Islands. And in fact, they lost their opening game against Papua New Guinea by default because their flights were cancelled and they got stranded en route.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's incredible that they've managed to get football structures in place where they are genuinely competitive against all these odds.
I love the last bullet point in your notes for this segment, Paul. When teams win the league in Tuvalu, what do? They
celebrate, as they celebrate everything in Tuvalu apparently, by driving around the whole island in convoy, honking their horn. So it's such a small island, you can just drive a circuit of the island. And apparently that's what they do for like weddings. I think they maybe even do it for funerals, but big events are celebrated by, just doing a lap of the island. I think something about living in England and how long that would take. But the idea of doing it on Tuvalu is brilliant.
Well, my sister's getting married at the weekend, so maybe I'll propose that after the ceremony. Let's go for a little drive and honk some horns. We've got a rare shirt to give away as well. A Tuvalu shirt.
We do, and Stings, our friends at Stings, boutique football shirt makers, they often do these pro bono. They do it just for the doing something nice for that region. They do a lot of Pacific Island shirts. They've done it again. They make Tuvalu's kits. So we have a incredibly rare Tuvalu football shirt to give away. I will note we only have it in sizes medium, large, and extra large. So if you win it, you'd have to nominate one of those three sizes. I can actually show it to the screen because I'm so terrible at describing them. It's wrapped, but I can sort of show you. Can you see that?
Paul, it's given me quite little, but it does look quite funky. Yeah,
it's a very nicely designed shirt, as they usually are, and it's certainly one of the rarer national team shirts you'll ever see.
Nice. People can, of course, have a chance to win that by signing up to our Patreon at patreon.com/sweeperpod. By the time the next main episode goes out on Wednesday, the 17th of September. You may also have noticed, if you're a Spotify listener, you'll see our bonus pods appearing on the Spotify main feed now. They are locked unless you are a Patreon member, but you'll see there's a special episode we've done with the Spanish football journalist Alex Fitzpatrick, all about his trip to the exclave of Ceuta in continental Africa for their opening game of the second division season. That was absolutely fascinating for us, and I think for our patrons hopefully too. So if you are a listener on Spotify and you want to unlock those episodes that you can see on your feed, you just need to sign up to the Patreon at patreon.com/sweeperpod, and you can listen to them all in one convenient place. Paul, I think that just about brings us to the end of the episode for today. Anything final to add before we clock off?
No, just thanks everyone again for joining us. And as Lee says, lots more new things going on the Patreon. We've just done a big survey of listeners to see what kind of things you want to see. And luckily, a lot of those things are things we were keen to do. So we're really going to be putting a lot more new and exciting stuff through that Patreon. So it's a great time to join us, given that we've also got these giveaways. We're going to be doing a lot of kind of cool giveaways over the next few months. So yeah, if you're thinking about joining us, this is a good time.
Excellent. Well, we will be back with another bonus episode this time next week on Wednesday, the 10th of September. So do join us on Patreon for that and plenty of other bonus content. Otherwise, we'll see you again for another regular podcast on Wednesday, the 17th of September.